Hello students, welcome to EPG Pathshala. Today in this module we are going to talk about Ecology and Public Health Part 2. This is the second module in the third module series on Ecology and Public Health. Today we are going to talk about human health and environment. On completion of this module, you will be able to describe the ways in which human health is determined by the natural environment. You will be able to recognize sources and control measures for environmentally mediated diseases. You will be able to discuss the contribution of human activity to global environment changes, and you will be able to describe the relationship between the health inequity and environmental change. Introduction. Over the last 2 centuries, dramatic improvements in nutrition, sanitation and access to health care have allowed humans to live longer, healthier lives. In 1800, average life expectancy globally was approximately 30 years only. 2 centuries later, it was 66 years. Over the same period, global population increased from 1 billion to 7 billion. Most advances in population health stems from the technological mastery of the relationship between the humans and the natural environment. For example, with technology and fossil fuels, we have created an infrastructure to bring clean drinking water to billions of people, designed systems to water, fertilize, harvest and transport the food to nourish them, and invented chemical insecticides to reduce transmission of vector-borne diseases. However, technological advances have also created new hazards for human health, including chemical pollution, nuclear radiation and climate change. The health burdens of these hazards are distributed unequally between and within populations. In this module, we will explore the physical, chemical and biological components of environmental health and the evidence linking human health directly and indirectly with the natural environment. Environmental determinants of health. Learning outcome 1 describe the ways in which human health is determined by the natural environment, and learning outcome 2 recognize sources and control measures for environmentally mediated diseases. There are many factors which together determine the health of individuals and communities. For the most part, whether an individual will live a long and healthy life or suffer from early disease, disability or death is determined by the genetic makeup and their environment. Our genetic makeup, our age and our sex are relatively fixed. However, where we live, the state of our environment, our income and education levels, and our relationships with friends and family all have considerable impact on our health and are largely a result of policies and practices which can be modified. These are called the social determinants of health. The social determinants of health are illustrated in the figure below. The center of the circle shows of non-modifiable determinants of health such as genetics, age and sex. Each ring outside the center illustrates one kind of social or modifiable aspect of health. Lifestyle choices include an individual's diet, exercise, smoking and drinking habits. The larger issue include the kind of jobs available and how socially integrated we are. But the broadest range of factors are environmental, from unsafe drinking water and poor sanitation or hygiene to indoor and outdoor pollution, workplace hazards, industrial accidents, automobile accidents or poor natural resource management. Surprisingly, access to healthcare services often has less of an impact on health than does the environment. For this reason, a well-developed system of healthcare has less of an effect on human health, longevity and well-being than does a robust, resilient, natural and physical environment. The health of our natural environment and the quality of larger ecosystem which supports all life determines how healthy we can be. Here in this figure, we can see the health map that's reproduced by permission from the authors Barton and Grant, who published this in the year 2006. Traditionally, environmental hazards to human health have been classified as biological, that is microbes, malaria, chemical, that is toxins, or physical, that's radiation. Physical hazards are naturally occurring processes which threaten human health. Examples include ultraviolet radiation, that is sunlight, which damages DNA, or natural phenomena such as volcanoes, earthquakes, tornadoes, landslides, or droughts. Biological hazards are interactions between organisms in which the transfer of viruses, bacteria, or parasites cause disease. These are also natural processes. Chemical hazards can occur naturally, that is heavy metals such as lead or mercury, the compounds in foods that cause allergic reactions in humans, or chemical hazards can also be human made. As chemical use has grown in industrialized societies, so have chemical related diseases including cancer, asthma, birth defects, developmental disabilities, autism, endometriosis, and infertility. Children are particularly sensitive to biological, chemical, and physical hazards. The World Health Organization estimates that nearly 1/3 of the 6.6 million deaths in children under the age of 5 each year are associated with environment-related causes, including diarrheal disease and malaria. The release of tens of thousands of new chemicals since the 1950s coincides with rapidly rising incidents of childhood asthma, obesity, diabetes, attention deficit hyperactive disorder, and birth defects. Growing scientific evidence links the incidence of these diseases in part to environmental toxicants. Even at low levels, chemicals can disrupt physiological systems and cause disease, disrupting hormones. Growing scientific evidences like the incidence of these diseases in part to environmental toxicants. Even at low levels, chemicals can disrupt physiological systems and cause disease, disrupting hormones or sexual developments and causing cancer. The short film, titled Environment, Health and You, offers a historical overview of environmental health and the interconnections between air, water, soil, food production and distributions. Chemicals, population, climate change and policy. Although it is made for the context of the United States, the principles and processes are similar in India. Case study of chemical hazards, mercury. The main source of mercury pollution include coal emissions from thermal power plant emissions, mercury cell, chlor-alkali processing facilities, along with artisanal and industrial gold mining. Discarded mercury pollutes the global environment, affecting bodies of water and the organisms inhabiting them. Mercury that contaminates bodies of water and moist earth will turn into highly toxic organic mercury. Even small amounts of this substance will harm the brain and the rest of the nervous system. Organic mercury also accumulates in the bodies of exposed animals. Healthcare is a considerable source of mercury pollution. Fluorescent lamps, thermometers, dental fillings, waste treatment, and incineration of products containing mercury, and cremation. Many instruments used in hospitals, healthcare facilities, and laboratories contain mercury. The substance is commonly found in thermometers and blood pressure measuring devices. Tools used in construction and household such as thermostats, pressure gauges, and switches may also contain mercury. Mercury may be released from these and other similar products, as no device is 100% failure proof. Substances such as fixatives, preservatives, lab chemicals, cleaners, and other products may have mercury added deliberately. When discarded inappropriately, mercury always contaminates the environment. At room temperature, significant amounts of mercury can turn into gas. Reducing methyl mercury accumulation in the global environment is a global priority. Fortunately, there are safe, cost-effective, non-mercury alternatives for nearly all healthcare processes that use it. Most mercury-based thermometers and everyday products such as battery, lighting fixtures, electrical and electronic devices, dental products, and measuring and control devices. The Delhi municipal government is developing a plan to phase out mercury-based medical devices in hospitals under its jurisdiction. As more and more laws banning mercury product gets passed in wealthier countries, stocks are usually sold to Asian countries. This practice will likely add challenges to mercury reduction programs in the region. This is an alarming trend and calls for greater controls on trade, including export and import bans on mercury. Global environmental changes. Learning outcome 3 discuss the contribution of human activity to global environmental changes. The earth has a number of mechanisms to maintain the equilibrium of its biosphere, and there is now scientific consensus that humans have significantly altered the biosphere's equilibrium. Over the past several hundred years, human activity from us has made far-reaching changes in the structure and function of the Earth's natural systems. There are substantial health effects from the anthropogenic degradation of nature's life support systems. The chart below shows several of these. Several recent reports explore the health impact of global environmental change in greater detail. The 2015 Lancet Commission on Climate Change and Health explores the health impacts of climate change and fossil fuel combustion. The WHO's Convention on Biological Diversity, State of Knowledge Review on Biodiversity and Health, the Rockefeller Foundation Lancet Commission on Planetary Health situates both of these in the broader context of anthropogenic influences on the environment and the social and political failures responsible for these harms. The figure below takes a wide view. It describes the boundaries of the essential Earth system processes which make the planet hospitable for human life. 4 of these have been breached: climate change, biodiversity loss, and disruption of the nitrogen cycle and ocean acidification. In other areas, that is chemical pollution, land degradation, fresh water use, and ozone depletion, threshold limits have not yet been quantified. This image has been taken from Rockstrom and others, 2009. It also shows how close we may be from reaching those boundaries, which would mean exceed the carrying capacity of the Earth in those areas. Breaching these boundaries will undermine the ecosystem processes needed to support our population of 7 billion people. Some scientists have suggested that our current geological era should be titled the Anthropocene, to acknowledge it as the time when human activities began to have a discernible global effect on the Earth's system. Case study on biodiversity. Biodiversity, the variety of life, is often discussed in terms of ecosystem services, the functions ecologies play in human societies. Examples of the services provided by ecosystems to humanity include products such as clean air, food regulation, and disease control. Forest and wetlands system filter and purify water. Woodlands stabilize the saturation of soil on steep surfaces, preventing landslides and flooding. Plants reduce air pollution by absorbing carbon and other gaseous and particulate pollutants. Biodiverse ecologies helps control infectious disease and are vital for medical research. More than half of all drugs registered with the US Food and Drug Administration in 1981 to 2010 were derived from natural sources, but deforestation threatens the extinction of the tree frog species whose toxins underpin our understanding of anesthetic agents. Climate change and ocean acidification destroys the coral reefs and the snail species whose toxins is used to develop new painkillers. Melting Arctic ice denies us the ability to study how polar bears avoid renal failures, diabetes, and osteoporosis in circumstances that cause it in other mammals like us. Biodiverse systems are also resilient. They can minimize disruptions, recover from shocks and stresses, and to adapt and grow from them. Systems with low biodiversity are susceptible to collapse when faced with a new pathogen. But biodiverse ecosystems are robust, that is, they have the adaptive capacity to remain stable in the face of external disturbances and are perfect against a range of infectious diseases. Case study on climate change. The effects of climate change threaten to undermine the last half century of gains in development and global health. The impacts are already being felt, and future projections represent a high and potentially catastrophic risk to human health. Health inequity and environment. Learning outcome 4. Students will be able to describe the relationship between health inequity and environmental change at the end of this. Health inequity is the systemic and avoidable difference in life expectancy and health status between groups of people. Many aspects of policy or social practice affect the environment in ways which can increase health inequity. Development and planning policies often locate a disproportionate number of polluting industries, power plants, or waste disposal areas near low income or communities. Transportation and housing practices also affect the distribution of environmental pollution. The principle of environmental justice holds that all people have an equal right to protection from environmental burdens. Preventing health inequity. Imagine that you are standing by the shore of a swiftly flowing river and you hear a drowning man cry out. You jump into the cold water, fight against the strong current and force your way to the man. You grasp him tightly and swim slowly back to the shore. You pull him onto the bank and start CPR. Just as he begins to revive you hear another cry for help. You jump back into the water. You struggle against the current and eventually reach a drowning woman. You eventually get her to shore, lift her onto the bank beside the man and start to resuscitate her. Just as she begins to breathe, you hear yet another cry for help. Astonished, exhausted and overwhelmed, you return to the cold waters and force your way to a desperate child. Although the child weighs little, it requires great effort to bring him to shore, lay him on the bank and start to revive him. Near exhaustion, it occurs to you that you are so busy saving people that you have no time to see what is happening upstream to cause them to fall into the river. Why are people falling in? Is the bridge broken? Are they unaware of the danger of crossing the river at that point? Should warning signs be posted? Are swimming lessons needed? Has a particular cultural practice resulted in greater risk of falling in it? The story is a metaphor for the ways in which we can choose to prevent ill health and death. The drowning people represent those who have become ill and need treatment in a healthcare system. Curative treatment is expensive, labor and resource intensive. In contrast, to identify and act on the upstream or root causes of injury and illness by preventing them, that is keeping people from falling into the river in the first place, is a powerful way to reduce inequalities in health. There are 3 types of interventions which can reduce risks or threats to health. Primary prevention is preventive. It aims to prevent disease or injury before it even occurs. This is done by preventing exposure to hazards that cause disease or injury, or altering behaviors that can lead to disease or injury, or increasing resistance to disease or injury should exposure occur. These include legislations and enforcement to control the use of hazardous products like asbestos, education about safe behavior, for example, reducing occupational exposure to health hazards, and immunization against infectious diseases. Secondary prevention is protective. It aims to reduce the impact of a disease or injury that has already occurred by detecting and treating disease or injury as soon as possible to halt or slow its progress, and preventing progression to long-term problems. Examples include screening tests to detect disease in its earlier stages, and modified work so injured or ill workers can return safely to their jobs. Tertiary prevention is curative. It helps people manage long-term health problems or injuries in order to preserve as much as possible their ability to function, their quality of life, and their life expectancy. Examples include manage and vocational rehabilitation programs to retain workers for new jobs when they are unable to recover their previous function. Take the example of a polluted river which causes illnesses in the surrounding community. Primary preventive action. Approach the company discharging industrial chemicals into the river. That is, eliminate the exposure altogether. Secondary preventive action would be advise local residents to avoid certain uses of river, to identify signs of illness, or initiate a screening program to detect poisoning or infection to treat it early. And the third and tertiary preventive action would be teach people how to reduce the effects of their condition. In environmental health issues, a combination of primary, secondary, and tertiary interventions are needed to achieve a meaningful degree of prevention and protection. However, the further upstream one is from the illness and injury, the likelihood that the intervention will be effective and will reduce health inequity. Another reason to focus on source or primary level prevention of environmental health hazards is that healthcare organizations are themselves major contributors to environmental pollution, resource depletion, climate change, and biodiversity loss. A large private hospital can produce up to a ton of general waste each day, along with a range of chemical, pharmaceutical, and radioactive waste which requires special handling. Incinerating medical waste produces large amounts of airborne dioxins, mercury, and other pollutants which can drift over thousands of miles, and the ash produced from incineration can spread disease. Intergenerational equity. Our discussion of health equity includes consideration of distribution of resources for health and justice between groups of people within and between nations. It assumes that greater equity can be achieved through policy and practice, but it only considers people of the same generation. In a world of global environmental changes, a similar consideration should be made intergenerationally. In many ways, the economic development gains in health gains of the previous century have been achieved by mortgaging the health of future generations. To safeguard equity between present and future generations, primary prevention of planetary boundary breaches such as climate change and biodiversity loss in the current generation is necessary to prevent illness, injury, and death for future generation. Conclusion. Humans are components in a complex web of life. Because of the ongoing interactions between humans and the environment, our health is to a considerable extent determined by the quality of the ecosystems we inhabit. The functioning of ecosystems is also determined in large part by human activity. In short, environment and health are closely related. In this module, we have given some examples of the ways in which human health is determined by the natural environment and examples of causes of environmentally related disease and how it can be controlled at primary, secondary, and tertiary levels. We have also considered how to reduce the unequal distribution of the environmental burden of disease. Although the task may seem daunting, particularly considering the growing global effects of anthropogenic environmental change, it is important to remember that there are many solutions within reach. We can address the drivers of environmental change by redefining prosperity to focus on health and well-being for all, by sustainable and equitable patterns of consumption, and by respecting for the integrity of natural system. Thanks a lot.